Okay.
Of course, that'd be great. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everybody. We'd like to welcome you to this special Facebook Live here at News 3 Now in coordination with Madison Metropolitan School District. And I am very pleased to introduce to you Madison's new superintendent, Dr. Carlton Jenkins. Thank you very much for being here. It's nice to see you face to face.
Right, exactly.
Socially distanced, of course.
Yes, most definitely. Thank you so much for having us here from Madison Metropolitan School District. We're very excited to be here.
Well, we are very happy to have you here. This has been one wild ride. I know you just arrived in Madison recently, so let's just brief everybody where you came from in your experience.
Yes, I'm coming here from Robbinsdale, Minnesota. I was a superintendent there. And prior to that, I was in Atlanta, Georgia as a chief academic officer. And prior to that, I was a superintendent in Michigan. And so coming here to the Twin Cities, going to the Twin Cities was really wonderful, but I'm actually coming back home. I was here in Madison in 1993 as an assistant principal at Madison Memorial High School, and I doubled out of UW with my master's and doctorate. So for me, this is just traveling back home, and I am totally excited in the middle of a pandemic to be coming home and joining such a fabulous group of staff and wonderful students. I have had the opportunity now to get out in the community and beginning to meet some of our students and meet some of our parents, and it's just been exciting. And this wonderful panel that we have here today with us, these students, I'm really looking forward to this opportunity to have this conversation, and that's kind of where I am right now in the short. But we're excited to be here. My wife, Lisa, my daughter Jasmine, and my grandson Bruns, who's 9 months old. We're all here together and ready to do this work.
So you understand what it's like to parent, you understand what it's like to have your kids in school and the struggles and the good times and the bad times that happen with all that comes with being a parent and a teacher, in a sense.
Most definitely. This is different for all of us, but this is also an opportunity for all of us to learn together. And so as we're trying to pivot and do the things that we need to do for our students, we have to also be concerned about our staff and be concerned about our own families. In the Zoom world, the day doesn't necessarily start at the regular time and it doesn't end at the regular time. So it's a lot of anxieties that were created in the world of the unknown. But I have to say I'm very proud of what's happening here in Madison as I was watching afar, getting ready to come in, the wonderful things that happened here last spring. How the staff didn't just focus on the academics. They knew that we were in the middle of a health crisis, and they knew that we were in the middle of an economic crisis, just family crisis all together. So we had to pay closely attention to the socio-emotional needs of our students and of our families and of our staff. And here, the staff did a wonderful job of going out in the community, continuing to support the community by taking food out to the community, by making sure that all students had access to the technology, taking it out to each home, also making sure that there were hot spots out there so that all students had access. Across the country, we're talking about during this pandemic, the students who are the most vulnerable, our Black and brown students and our poor students, our ELL students, get further behind during this time because in a lot of places, they don't have that access to technology. But here in Madison, we're very proud of that fact that we were able to come together and put that level of technology out in our community.
So I want to point out that, it's not just our school district or the Twin Cities or every single school district. When this happened in March and everybody had to pivot, it happened so quickly and there was no playbook.
Right.
So everybody did, my mantra, I'm doing the best I can under the circumstances. I believe everybody was doing the best that they could under the circumstances. But now there's been some time, summer break, right, to regroup and think about how do we best support our children, our students, whether if they are in school, learning face-to-face or virtually. But there's so much, school is much more than education at this point.
Right.
You hit on it about, their social and mental well-being.
Yes.
So I think we should maybe use that as a jumping board if you're all right with that.
Great. I think that's an excellent point that you're making of how it hit everyone, not just Twin Cities, not here just in Madison. This became a global crisis with this whole thing with COVID-19. And during this crisis, we had to think on our feet, things that we were thinking about doing 5 and 10 years from now. We had to do it in 2 days. 8 days.
Yeah.
And so last spring will be totally different than what students are going to experience this year because we were in crisis mode. Everyone was just trying to figure it out. We thought it was going to be short term, but as you can see, it's going into the fall. And I think it's amazing how the students have adjusted to the different levels of expectations that have been laid out. Initially, we didn't quite have it clear as to what we should have been doing. But now that we've had the summer to prepare, you see how our staff, they're totally retooling. They're coming back out at how they're going to deliver instruction. Also in Madison, we did our surveys and the students actually talked about the fact of during that crisis mode, we were trying to take care of the social emotional to a point and sometimes to a fault, and we gave no grades. And the students really talked about the need for us to have that expectation for grades, and that helps students remain engaged. A number of students we did lose across the country because of that engagement piece. We also learned too early on where in the past we had talked about not giving as much screen time or contact time to our earliest learners, but we realized that there was a connection piece that was being missed between our earliest learners and our staff. So we had to come back and rethink how we gave, how we were going to give screen time so that the students could actually see their teacher. And for the parents needed it as well. The parents who were at home trying to do online learning in isolation versus with the support of the staff person or other individuals checking in on them. So thank you for that question.
What you have just said is going to go funnel right to my girl Julia here. West High School, she is a senior, and I know she has some questions for you. Julia, hi, can you hear me?
Great.
Hi, I can hear you.
Hi, Julia. All right, so it's one-on-one. You've got the doctor here yourself. What's your question?
Awesome.
I know you've got a few questions, so go for it.
Right, so one of my questions, kind of piggybacking off of that, was if you could just talk about any programs that are in place this year to virtually support students' mental and social well-being.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And let me tell you, during virtual, what we learned, you don't go at this alone. You depend on a team. So knowing that we were coming to speak to the students, they have the entire central office on board, ready to answer any questions, giving them expert advice. So when we start talking about the social-emotional well-being and what we're going to do, I'm going to pull in one of our staff members right now, Chad, and he'll speak to that part for you, okay?
All right, we're going to get Chad. Hey, Chad, how are you, sir?
Hey guys, how are we doing?
All right.
Dr. Jenkins, I am guessing you want Jay Affelt, if I had to guess. On occasion, we get the bald ex-principals mixed up, but I think you want Jay to answer this one.
And I
am
totally do.
here
I'm sorry.
for technology and everything else.
All right, Chad,
Right.
see you later.
All right, I'll be back.
Thank you. Thank
All
you
right,
for clearing
Jay,
that.
you're up. How do you answer that for Julia?
Thank you, Charlotte. Julia, that's a great question. And Julia, as you know, every school year starts with our teachers really trying to build strong relationships and strong learning communities. This year, we have an even stronger emphasis on social emotional learning than ever before. We want all of you, every one of our students, to feel truly safe and a sense of belonging. And we know that that COVID has resulted in really high levels of stress for all of us. And we know that when this stress combines with racial trauma, other stressors and other existing mental health concerns, we need a really wide range of intentional supports, and we have those ready to go. In terms of what students would expect to see in classrooms, beyond creating those safe learning environments, you're going to experience more explicit teaching of social emotional learning skills, focusing on building and maintaining authentic relationships, even in virtual spaces, making sure that we're helping you all focus on your own identities and making sure you have voice, making sure that you're engaging in skills that will strengthen both your academic and social emotional skill development. And lastly, making sure that we're helping you process your own emotions with all that's going on, set goals, feel and show empathy for others, and critically examine root causes of the inequities that we have within our district and help promote racial and social justice. And not just explicit teaching within your classes, but also embedded throughout your experiences. We think and expect that you'll see a lot more of that explicit focus on social emotional learning throughout your classes.
Jay, if I may ask, do you have any concrete examples of how this might be implemented or what it will look like, say, in a Zoom math class of some sort? How does that incorporate into that learning?
Yeah, great question. I think in many cases, especially at the secondary level, our teachers would within math, obviously we want strong connections between students, among students and between students and teachers. But I think as opposed to just focusing on the actual math content and answering questions and getting help with solving that particular or demonstrating a particular skill, we're hoping that you're going to see our teachers talking more specifically about here's how we approach a challenge like this. And it's okay to feel like you don't get it. And that's just the beginning of really starting to learn. And let's work together. And here's how I want you to be able to reach out. And here's some strategies I'd like you to use when you feel like it's just a little too much. And it's okay to take a break and come at it a different way. More of that explicit coaching around how the social emotional elements come together to support academic growth.
Okay. Jay, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Julia, I know you had another really good question. What is that?
Sure. So I was wondering, how will teachers and classes this year start adapting to students who didn't attend last year or weren't able to attend classes at the end and might be a little behind with where they're supposed to be at?
It's good because there were quite a number of students who just never logged on, Dr. Jenkins.
Right.
How do you handle that? How do you bring them back in virtually?
Well, I tell you,
knowing that sometimes their home situations are just not allowing that.
We were very fortunate this summer to run a program with UW in terms of where we partnered with them in terms of students we had identified did not engage last year. Over 300 students that we had identified for the program. And as I was going out and meeting with the principals this summer, in particular with the chiefs, talking to them along with the principals, they were talking about how they were reaching out right now to those students who did not engage and already inviting them back into the year. And in fact, some of our chiefs could speak to that particular point because I had a meeting with them and they were sharing with me. So if perhaps the chiefs could come up and speak to that.
All right. Who would you like to speak first?
Well, all the chiefs are there. So you have there Mr. Hernandez and you have Dr. Clarity and you have Ms. Stanford.
Mr. Hernandez, let's start with you. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Well. Okay, and Mr. Kane is not part of it. Ignore Mr. Kane over there.
Yeah, I'm going.
All right, Mr. Hernandez, go ahead, please.
So one of the things that we've done is all our high schools have worked around at identifying advisors or key individuals to be reaching out to students that did not engage. They spent the 13 weeks left in school as well as over the summer contacting homes, working with Mr. Weezy's department to ensure was it a technology issue. We've been sending out hotspots, getting replacement computers if needed. But one of the biggest one is just the personal connection, using our staff to reach out and to almost coach and or prep students. Mm-hmm. And the other part is we've used some of these last 2 weeks of professional development in which teachers have had opportunities to do some collaborative planning, the cyclical type of planning in which an algebra teacher could meet with the Algebra 2 or a geometry teacher and say, hey, this is the areas that we were able to get to. And these are the areas that we're going to need a little bit more of a boost in. And so our teachers were able to begin some of those planning as well.
Okay. All right. Dr. Clardy.
All right. Thank you. Great question. Additionally, I think the key word here is intentionality. We were very intentional with working with our staff and families and going out into the community, obviously still practicing social distancing, but re-engaging with families that may have had disruptive learning in the spring, bringing information of what the fall reentry will look like, developing authentic partnerships with not just the student, but the families as well. So there was a better understanding of what the fall virtual instruction would look like. We really uplifted the supports around social emotional learning that will take place and prioritize the well-being of the student, also with a deep understanding of us working to accelerate instruction. And so I just want to circle back to it's not something that just happened generically. It was like really a lot of intentionality that went into it, specifically targeting students that may have had disruptive learning in the spring. And we'll feel confident that we have re-engaged with those families and we'll see a stronger engagement in the fall.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Stanford, I see that you are Chief of Schools Elementary, which is perfect because we have some parent questions regarding their elementary students. They were wondering, for younger elementary kids who cannot tolerate those Zoom meetings, is there going to be any alternative learning format, such as worksheets that they can complete offline, or those going to be made available? And then another question people had was, as we all know as parents, when you go to those wellness checks, they tell you limit that screen time with your babies. So now how do you go against the doctor on that one? You know, because this is important. It's about education, but how's that balance, and what are the expectations for the younger ones?
Thank you. That's a really great question. I'd also like to say that I am co-chief with Dr. Clarity, so we are both with elementary. So he would also be able to jump in on this question. But we intentionally went back and looked at the feedback that we got from parents as well as from students. We do have expectations as far as how we are intentionally expecting virtual instruction to happen in the fall. We are limiting the amount of synchronous instruction, and so we're limiting those large chunks of screen time. And so we have the best engagement that we can possibly have. So with core instruction, students will be online with their teachers in 15 to 20-minute chunks of time. After that, that could actually be followed by some independent work that they're doing. It could be some small group work as well as some one-on-one work that they would engage in. So that's how we're planning on addressing that. We also know that the best way to give feedback in order to ensure that students are progressing is to have that immediate feedback. And so that's why that engagement with synchronous instruction and also with assignments via Seesaw, which is our platform that we'll be using this year, is going to be key. So while we could have worksheets, we do understand that relationship piece, the engagement piece, and the immediate feedback is what's really important for the progress of our students.
All right, thank you very much. I would like to ask Lanaya up there. Hello, Lanaya is in 6th grade at O'Keefe Middle School. Okay, give us that smile, girl. You got a good smile. All right, no, thank you. Okay, so what is your question for Dr. Jenkins?
If someone, like, their computer is like broken and like there are no more replacements, how they be able to like interact with their...
Okay, so if their computer is broken?
How are they going to be able to interact?
Yes, so this time I will call on Chad, okay?
Okay.
Thanks, Dr. Jenkins, and thank you, Lanaya. Yeah, so we do have systems set up through your librarian, your LMTS staff, that if you log onto our website, there's a process that you or one of your parents can follow where you simply need to notify your librarian and they'll work you through any issues that you might be having. It could be just a password issue that they might be able to fix on the phone or through an email. But if your Chromebook's broken or you need a new one, or maybe you didn't get one last year, we've already been working on families coming to our sites for about the last 3 weeks to either switch out Chromebooks or get one. And that service will be in place through the school year. So Lanaya, if your Chromebook breaks, you could call a helpline. That number's posted on our website, or your librarian can work with you or one of your parents, and they can let us know, and they can either come into school and swap one out, and we'll have a system set up when the school year is going to do that, or we'll even deliver it to your house. So we want to make sure that you have a device and that there's no downtime if you're having issues with technology. We don't want technology to be a barrier for anybody.
Chad, I want you to hang out there a minute because I want to read you a question that was that actually you guys got over the weekend, and it's in Spanish, so just bear with me here. Mi hija tiene la computadora de 5th grade. Ahora que va a 6th grade, necesita un device diferente. So basically she's saying, my daughter has the 5th grade computer. Now that she's going to 6th grade, she's going to be going to Jefferson Middle School. Does she need a different device, or does she use the 5th grade computer? Now, I did my own research, Chad, and I see that today is the day for Jefferson students to go to Memorial to pick up their Chromebooks, right?
Yeah, exactly right. So your research is correct. And if they can't get there today to swap them out, we've got makeup days scheduled for all next week, that if any of the families we've been contacting aren't able to get to school to swap out a device, it's not the end of the world. The best thing is they have a working computer from last year. And if they can make it today, great. And we'll be there at the curb to help swap out devices for you. And if they didn't make it today, they can come anytime next week. And then we'll even have plans in place that once the school year gets started, if families weren't able to make it in, we'll continue to work with families to get those devices swapped out. So it would be great if we could see those families today. Otherwise, it's not the end of the world, and we've got makeup time set for the following week.
Okay, all right. So just if that mom is listening, si tiene una computadora del distrito escolar, está bien. Si no es así, debes ir a Memorial High School hoy para intercambiar. So hopefully, but even if you're not able to get it, it is okay. Bottom line, you have deadlines, but really they're soft deadlines.
There's soft deadlines.
You know.
Well, we want them to get it by those deadlines, but if not, we're still working with all of our families. And mentioning this, and I'm glad you read that in Spanish as well, I would like to have Lisa talk about the support we're going to be giving for our ELL students.
Yeah, because the DLI, we also have questions about how are you going to support the DLI students and families.
Yes, definitely.
Hi, Lisa. Oh, Lisa, you got to take your audio off. You're on mute. There you go.
Hello, thank you for having us today.
Hi. Okay.
So we received feedback via our surveys that families who had children in dual language classrooms or families who had children who were English language learners needed additional supports in order to access the content and get feedback to families and to students about the learning. So our Office of Multilingual and Global Education has bilingual resource specialists who have been reaching out to families all summer long, one by one, to be sure they have devices, to be sure they are set up for the year, and to reassure them that we heard their voices and their feedback, and we were taking that into consideration as we improved our approach in the fall. So we actually have revised scope and sequence documents for learning that clearly articulate the teaching strategies and resources for students who are in bilingual classrooms or who are English language learners. And we have a more robust set of tools and resources for families. So for example, we heard from families that they needed directions for work and for classwork in both languages. So while that may seem very basic, it's really important and it's actually critical. So we worked very hard to support families as well so that they feel like they can successfully support children who are learning at home in both languages.
All right, Lisa, thank you so much for your time. I would like to now go to Mr. Gordon Allen, who is a junior at Madison East High School. Hi, Gordon. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you very much. What questions do you have for Dr. Jenkins?
Yes. How will a sense of belonging be incorporated into the virtual learning environment?
And we actually have a number of individuals who could speak to this particular question. I'm going to go back to the chiefs in terms of what we have done in terms of the communication we're putting out to all of our principals about working with their staff in terms of creating that sense of belonging, because we know that's one of our core values in MMSD, and we truly believe in this, and they've been doing a lot of work to engage with staff around this as well.
All right, Mr. Hernandez, let's start with you.
So over the last 2 weeks, we've been doing a lot. Gordon, how you doing, man? He's one of my former students. Gordon, we've been doing a lot of this work with the teachers first. One, just to make sure that we are providing supports for the teachers, both in the social, emotional supports, as well as that sense of belonging. And then through that, being able to model some of these examples and spending the first week and or two of when we return back into school of using some of the same strategies to provide the supports for our students. That, along with, as I mentioned before, having each student assigned at least one advisor, just to be able to check in, ensure that students are getting what they need, and if there's adjustments needed on the school's way, and how might we be able to provide those adjustments.
All right, Ms. Stanford?
So in addition to that, we understand that relationships, as Mike said earlier, are extremely important. And so we've been leaning into that and making sure that we're intentional on the relationships that we're building, not only with our students, but with our families as well. And so during that Wednesday time, when there is asynchronous instruction happening for students, there is also an opportunity for staff to reach out to families, to make those connections, to check in, to see how things are progressing, and to also see where we might need to pivot. And we also have office hours that are built in intentionally during the weeks as well, every day actually, in which teachers can also do that same reach out for engagement and for relationship building.
All right, and Dr. Clardy.
All right, thank you. As you've heard the other two chiefs mention the intentionality of the work, especially as we look at data and understanding who traditionally may not have been engaged or disengaged for in a sense of belonging placed on previous getting, we have to be intentional in reaching out to those students explicitly and families, and also designing strategies that are based off their input and student feedback of what will allow for a stronger sense of belonging. So along with the structures that we've talked about and the systems that is in play, you have to really be specific in reaching out to students that may have not as strong a sense of belonging in the past, to figure out how we can adjust as an organization and utilize their voice in making those next steps and transitioning to a stronger sense of belonging.
All right, thank you.
If I may, on one more point on that, and first of all, thank you, Gordon, for that question. And Gordon, I dressed up for you today. I thought you were going to be wearing a suit today after we agreed upon that, okay? But no, seriously, the sense of belonging piece is huge right now more than any. When you look in our strategic framework, and we're talking about a sense of community, right? Our students not only graduating, prepared for college and careers, but ready for the community. And right now in our community, Madison community, our world community, there are serious things going on with this pandemic of COVID-19 and the civic unrest around all of the racial issues that we've seen out there. Our students are coming back to school. We've been talking strictly academics here, but they have other things on their minds, and they need to process this. So when we come back, we're going to be very intentional about how we're giving that space for our students to process it, for our staff to process it, for our parents, and for our communities. And we ask in this particular time for our community to work with us in terms of working with their own children and then working with their schools so that everyone have that sense of belonging. What we have going on right now in our country with COVID-19 and the racial unrest because of the recent things that's happened within our community, even right here in our own community now, we could talk about Jacob Blake, not even Mr. Floyd. Both are important and all the rest are important. But our students are trying to process this as we're trying to ask them to learn. So Gordon, I tell you, that was a fabulous question that you asked, and we are going to be very intentional. And this is where we also ask that our students make the connections and our staff make the connection, in particular our social workers. During these times, if never before anyone ever understood why social workers are in schools, why nurses are in schools, why our EAs, everyone. This is a very important time. Thank you, Gordon, for that question.
All right, we have a question from a Facebook watch viewer right now, and this is, you might as well just get Dr. Harper, John Harper on here right now. This is for you. How will they help implement an IEP? Now, hi, John, how are you?
Right.
Oh, very good. How are you, Charlotte?
I'm well, so we meet again. Okay, so there's a huge subset of parents like myself who've got children with IEPs in the Madison School District. And so yesterday we were surprised at 3:30 with that amendment to Order Number 9, right?
Yes.
So now those with special needs, those with IEPs, are allowed to go back to school for face-to-face instruction. But even just personally speaking, you know, we did our IEP in January. That can't really hold a whole lot of water when it comes to virtual. Right. So I know there's that prior written notice that's kind of like an addendum to an IEP, which I'm still trying to get a handle on. But how do you support those with IEPs? Because they are
well. First, yeah. Let me thank you for the opportunity, and let me just clarify the news from yesterday. So yes, that was a huge relief that the Public Health Department had revised Order Number 9, and now will permit students with IEPs and or disabilities to receive in-person services, should their IEP team determine that. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that doesn't necessarily mean that every single student with a disability will now be receiving in-person services. These are still guided by the process of where IEP teams convene to determine what services can and should be provided virtually, what services must be provided in person for students and programs that we just simply cannot provide virtually. So your question then is like, how are we addressing the needs of our students with disabilities? And I would say we honor the process of individualizing each of our students to determine their set of unique needs. And so this process, one, can be in the form of an IEP. The IEP team convenes, they determine what services need to be provided, and the IEP team then documents those services within the various documents. The other way that, and you noted earlier, was through a prior written notice. We certainly are in, the expectation is that each of our special education case managers is having an individual conversation with parents and caregivers around the needs of their learners during this opening of the 2021 school year. We may be utilizing prior written notices to make minor adjustments to student programs such that they're deeply involved in and progressing in the general education curriculum and continue to make progress towards their individualized goals as well as applicable standards. But the bottom line is that we're taking a very individual approach. Our case managers have had multiple days and now a couple weeks to contact families to identify those whose programs need to have some form of in-person. And we're really excited to move ahead. I mean, it's next week we get to reconvene with our students and provide in-person services for those who absolutely need it.
So just to reiterate that not every individual with an IEP will be returning to face-to-face. It is on an individual basis to see how do they learn best in certain criteria of their IEP, of their development. And also, I believe that it's also looking at if there was any regression made during this time from March, I believe March 13th might have been the last day of school, somewhere around there.
March 13th.
Yeah,
yes.
So you're also looking at the regression that student had made. And so therefore, it is an individualized decision among the team. Is that
Right,
correct?
the team.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yep, that's exactly right, Charlotte.
And John, you'll be happy to know my IEP team, fantastic. Met them yesterday.
Oh,
Spot on.
great.
That's
Thank you.
awesome.
Spot
Thank you for
on.
that.
It was great to be heard,
Right.
listened to and heard, and to really understand. Like, you have to take, not just for students, you know, children like mine, you know, who are really the most vulnerable, but all of these students.
Right.
You know, you need to take a look at the individual and the families and really be invested. Because this right here, these are our future leaders.
Here they are.
You know, this is it. This is
Here they
it,
are.
folks. Okay, John, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
You're very
Michelle,
welcome.
Let me say this to you too. I want to say thank you for acknowledging that team. We have so many wonderful staff throughout the district, and sometimes that gets lost. During these times, we've seen staff step up so incredibly, and so thank you for saying that. And thank you to John and the rest of that team,
Oh, no.
in particular that IEP team.
Appreciate every single one of them for what they do. All right, now I would like to go to Delia. Delia, hi, from La Follette, 11th grade.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Yeah, my question is, how will the effectiveness of online classes be measured? Because I know, like last year, some students lost interest. And so how, and we don't know how long we'll be virtually. So is there any system put in place to measure how well students are succeeding? And if not, what we need to change in order to make that happen?
That's a fabulous question, and what we're going to do is bring our curriculum team on, Lisa and some of her staff, and also Mr. Stats, Dr. Stats as well, to address that with you.
Hi, Lisa, you're up.
Hi, thank you. And Delia, thank you for the question. We actually have put different measures in place as we move into the fall around attendance as one measure to make sure students are engaged. We'll also be using a variety of assessments for learning, not necessarily for evaluation, but to see how students are progressing along the way. We want to be sure that our students are accelerating through learning. We are not thinking about this as remediation. We actually feel that's a very negative-based approach to thinking about learning. And we want to be sure we're talking about accelerating learning. And we want to be sure that the feedback that students are getting and the actual grades, because remember, we're moving back to grades and away from pass-fail, that those grades actually really reflect the true learning and the true teaching that is happening. So I would say attendance is one way, increased feedback, and then a better system for reporting around assessment and grading that helps us get better information about how students are learning.
Lisa,
Andrew, would you have anything else you wanted to add?
Thanks for the opportunity. I would add very simply that we have a virtual learning feedback report that's headed to the board this coming Tuesday to answer some of the very questions that you had. And it is really taking a look at our attendance results, but also students and families' experiences and staff experiences during the tail end of the last school year. And it does address a lot of the things that Lisa's already called out. Attendance, grading, scheduling, those types of practices for the coming school year were largely informed by the feedback that you could hear about Tuesday night as we go through that evaluation. And as we go through the school year, they give you that existing evaluation would give you a very good idea of the things that we're going to be looking at moving into the future, as well as all of these different plans that evaluation has helped inform around virtual learning in particular. So take a look at that next Tuesday. That's the plug to watch that one. But also it does give you a really good idea of what we'd be looking at into the future.
Okay, Andrew, hang around here for a second, because I don't know if you would be answering this or if Dr. Jenkins can answer this. Will students have, not my question, will students have a greater ability to go at their own pace, or will it still be more traditional where they're only working on something for the day or the week?
Well, I'm going to answer part of that, and then I'll have Andrew answer.
Okay.
Because within that question, it's a complex thing that we're trying to balance as we have gone to this whole virtual learning. When we first started off, we tried to keep everything as we had it. That's what we ran into some issues, and it caused some socio-emotional issues and real anxiety issues amongst our student and amongst our staff. We had to pivot, and this is why we're coming back now, and we're really focusing on what's going to be good for all of us. We have the high standards that we know, but at the same time, we have to make sure that we're taking care of our students, taking care of our staff, and our parents.
Right.
I want everybody to understand that we had the COVID-19 loss of learning, which Delia was getting at, right? And also, we had the summer slide. So we're having to come back and approach this in a way to trying to accelerate the learning, which Lisa spoke of, but at the same time, do it in a way that we're not going to be damaging our students. So during this time, I'm asking everyone to kind of be patient with your children, and all students, be patient with yourselves. There are some things that you perhaps didn't get last spring, but as we move forward, we're trying to pace it in a way to give them the rigor that they need, the high quality, grade level instruction, but we are going to try to be patient as we move forward.
Another thing, this is another question that we received. Is virtual learning going to eliminate homework? I didn't think so, but I had to ask it for their sake.
Right, and what I want to do is make sure you get it directly from our experts. No, I would not expect that virtual learning is going to eliminate homework, but Lisa, if you want to speak to that first, and then we'll come back to you, Andrew.
Sure, that's a great question, and I'll give you an example of some concrete learning that we did from the spring. We found that families had an uneven experience across schools around instruction for student, and expectations we found in some cases were too much, that a student had a ton of homework at night from a variety of teachers that they might only be interacting with virtually. And we found that some students didn't have enough. The level of rigor wasn't enough. So we're really working with the new scope and sequence documents that I had mentioned earlier, and teacher teams are working together to calibrate as they share students, what is the workload that we're expecting for students both during the day and for homework. So that's real for families, right? The amount of homework and how much their student can do at home. I would say that we learned, and those teacher teams are better talking with each other to figure that out after the way things happened in the spring.
All right, Lisa,
Mike, you want to add to that?
Yeah, if I may just add one or two things. One, my own children were asking me about homework, and we talked a little bit about this as well as we have to rethink of what homework actually means. And remember that on our Wednesdays, we're going to have some asynchronous opportunities to learn, in which we're reviewing and previewing work that was done on Monday and Tuesday and Thursday and Friday. And so there's going to be some opportunities for this homework to be done during those times as well. And then we start talking about the purpose of the homework is to just possibly review the work that you've been doing and previewing the work that you're doing. But we're having those conversations within all our schools about just the purpose of what homework is doing.
Okay. All right. Thank you both. We are running out of time, and we have so much stuff to go to. I'd like to go to Zion. Zion, hi. You've been hanging out there patiently. Thank you. I appreciate you.
The question that I had was, will we have like worksheets to work on for homework, or will all our homework be online?
Okay, and there again, we're going to have something, a mixture of what we're doing, but I'll have Lisa speak to that as well with some of the chiefs as well if they want to chime in on that.
If we can just get one person to answer that question. Lisa, it'll be you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Charlotte. I think that for some students, there may be some paper, pencil, or worksheet assignments and some mailings that will go home. I think particularly students that John Harper was talking about a little bit earlier, students who have disabilities and may require a very different kind of maybe either paper, pencil, or a different sensory kind of learning. There will be particular mailings for those students as well. Most of the platforms, the core platforms that we'll be using, Google Classroom and also Seesaw, will be online with resources. But I would also say that some of our high school students who need textbooks, like AP textbooks or other textbooks for class, there'll be an opportunity for you to go back and pick those up as well.
All right, Lisa, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Anika, my girl at Memorial. All right, what's your question?
So my question was, what tools are the district using to communicate with students about grading policies and extracurricular opportunities?
Oh, that's an excellent question there. And what I would like for this, not only Lisa, but also our communications person, because it's to the students and to the parents, and what platforms are we using to communicate out. So both Lisa and Tim, if you could support with that.
Lisa, you are back.
Sure, thank you. So we actually just talked about grading at our last board meeting and the new grading practices and policies that we'll be putting into place starting in the fall. So teacher teams and teachers will be talking with students about grading expectations so that students are really clear about what's expected and they know how to contribute with their voice and provide feedback to them. And that the piece about feedback that you're hearing about a lot is how essential that is so that students know how they are performing along the way. So that piece of authentic feedback between families and grown-ups and students will be one way to go about it. We're also staggering, and I'll have Cindy talk about this a little. I know Cindy Green is on different points of the year progress reports, so that we're not waiting until the quarter or the semester to get feedback. We want to be sure that that's more timely.
All right.
Cindy?
Hi, good afternoon. I'll answer a little more around the grading piece, as Lisa mentioned. As we have done in the past, we provide ongoing progress reports to families at every level, especially at secondary, at week 4, at week 9, at week 13. Those are more formalized in nature so that families know how students are doing towards meeting the end of semester, end of quarter expectations. And then also, as Lisa mentioned, we have intentionally focused on feedback as a main through line for all levels of the system and really thinking about feedback for teachers and students. The last I would say is our platforms that we have provide opportunities for parents to receive daily updates based on how students are doing. So a student and parent can opt in to receive a nightly email to find out how the student is doing in terms of their assignments, either in Google Classroom or Seesaw, or they can opt in on a weekly basis. So we have a couple different ways that we're ensuring that students and families are constantly receiving in the moment feedback around grading.
All right, thank you, Cindy.
Cindy covered it.
Tim.
Yeah, in addition to that, as far as feedback with our students, we're going to be bold and look at new ways to engage our students in this virtual world, just like we're doing right now with this live stream and utilizing that technology to hear student voice and to look at new ways of communicating through podcasts involving our students and just different virtual platforms.
Okay, Tim, thank you. We have another question from a Facebook viewer. It is about the rise in teen gun violence and the removal of SROs from the high school. What is going to be done to ensure staff and student safety?
It's going to come on for that.
Who would you want to answer that?
Yeah, let me have.
Or do you have your own thoughts on that?
Yeah, I
Dr.
have my own
Jenkins?
thoughts first, but I'm going to also have support from the team. One of the things, I'm glad someone brought that up about the rise in the gun violence, because that's pretty.
That's going to be a big chunk.
It is across the country. We're seeing certain things happen, and we have to, as a community, come together. And right here in our own community with Anissa Scott, what happened in that violent act and what we're seeing just around the country, we have to come together and start really getting our families, getting our students, and creating the cultures, climates in our schools where you really talk about everyone's feeling a sense of belonging.
You went down to State Street.
Yes.
Yeah, what was that like for you?
Well, that was just very inspiring, and to see the young people down pushing the issues and talking to not only just about the gun violence, but just the whole unrest around the racial trauma that individuals are experiencing right now. And they're looking for a response, a collective response, not to resolve this on their own. But when we think about it in our schools and we're talking about pulling the resource officers out of schools, a decision that had happened prior to me coming. But I've been in this conversation about resource officers and the need for them to be in school or not be in school a long time, in which I support student self-management and doing things like restorative practices for our students and having them help shape the culture in the schools. And we know that that's a long way to go in terms of getting students where they totally need to be. But I am one who believes that students can and staff can manage schools, and we don't need resource officers necessarily in our schools to help our schools be safer, but we have to take some other measures to ensure that we're putting strategies together with our community. You have to have the community involved in this. Parents have to be involved in this conversation. The larger community is not just a school issue. The schools reflect the community reflect the schools. But go ahead.
How do you think, you personally, how do you empower? I mean, these are the change makers right here.
Yes.
And you've got a melting pot. It's beautiful.
Right.
How do you empower these students to go forward and to create that positive change that our community, our world desperately needs?
And frankly, I think through our children, we're going to learn as adults. As you can see, this is a powerful group that we have here on this panel. But there are many students out there like these students. But it goes back to Gordon's question, the sense of belonging. When students don't feel like they belong in an environment, they respond differently. So we have to do an exceptional job of making sure that we create those relationships, not only in the schools, we have to move into the community and have the community engaging with us more than just during the time that we have schools and operations. And so through that, and working with the community, I'm sure we're going to create the right environment.
Okay, we have time for one more question, and I wanted to bring up food. Okay, so I saw there is a wonderful program that is just going to be launched next week. That anybody, regardless if you were, if you were, what's the word? If you were eligible for free or reduced lunch, it doesn't matter. You are going to provide food for every single student who wants it.
And let me have
That's
Chad.
amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing. And not only just now, This is new, but what we've been doing ever since last spring, we've had staff volunteering, going out into the community. They've been working with the various food banks, delivering food in our community. So I am so proud of MMSD's families, the way that we have worked together, partnered with our community members to also deliver food into our community. We realize this is serious.
My colleague here, Chris Stanford, he did a story about the food and desert, so to speak, happening, and only 10%, 10% of the students who are actually needing this food actually got it. So I guess, Chad, how do you reach out to these families who so desperately need it? And it must pain your heart to think that some of these kids just did not eat this summer.
Yes, and we have to make sure that every child have the opportunity, every adult have the opportunity to have the nutrition that they need to just get by day to day. And so it's heartbreaking when you go out and you see this and you know that individuals out there that we're not reaching. When we hear that, it breaks our hearts. And I'm so proud. And I have Chad talk about the work that we've done since
Chad,
last spring.
floor is yours.
Yeah, so thank you guys for that. We certainly are, we're proud of the work that happened last spring. As I've heard a few folks mention, we were kind of in the middle of having to just think on our feet as quickly as possible and invent things that we've never done before. And we thought we did a decent job getting to as many of our families as we could last spring. We were innovative. There were folks literally delivering meals to doors. But we had a chance now this summer to reflect on the work we did and try to do it better. So the program that we've got ready to go September 8th, we've doubled the number of food sites that we'll actually be going to each week, 40 sites around the school district, and we've actually completely changed the way we're actually delivering food. So last spring, if a family came to one of those sites, they got a breakfast and a lunch. And we made the determination that maybe that wasn't enough. Maybe it was enough of a hardship to make it to schools every single day that we decided to go forward and actually package 5 breakfasts and 5 lunches into a big box of food that families can come get on a weekly basis. So they're not troubled by having to come to school every day. They can come once a week. We decided to double the number of sites that we're actually doing food drops at. And as you mentioned, you can go to any one of those sites, and any student now through the end of the year can receive a meal regardless of eligibility. And we're hoping those numbers are double or triple in terms of what we saw in the spring. We are also working on a plan that we believe will roll out here in middle September, that we will literally deliver meals to families right to their doorstep. So if they are unable to make it to one of those 40 sites, we will bring them the meal.
Okay.
So that's coming as well. So lots of great changes, and as you said, we don't want one student to go hungry, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that they get the food that they need.
Chad, thank you very much. Dr. Jenkins, if we just touched on some things. Right. I know that there are so many other questions out there for parents and caregivers who are watching, and if they still have questions, what do you recommend they do? Who should they contact?
I think they should send them directly into my office. You can send your questions in and send them directly to not only myself, but even to our school board members, and we'll funnel the questions down to the appropriate people. If it's things that you just heard some of these different individuals talk about, if you send it to my office, I'll get it to the right people. And this, we want this not just to be an event today. We want parents to continue, as a number of our parents have, continue to send us questions, and your feedback actually helps us serve you better. We're here to serve our community, serve our students and our parents, and we serve better once we get the information from you of how well we're serving you.
In 60 seconds, your final thoughts. What do you want people to know?
I want people to know here in MMSD, we're going to be here to support our children. We're going to be here to support our children, and we're going to be here to make sure that all of our children know that they belong in our district. We want you to come back to this school year excited, and we want our students to know that you're going to be the difference maker. Later on, history will talk about this group of students and how you rose above the particular challenge we have right now. So welcome back to MMSD, and we're looking forward to seeing you.
Thank you very much. Welcome back home to you.
Thank you.
And to Anika, Lanaya, Julia, Delia, Zion, and Gordon, thank you all so much for participating. Thank you for being you. And you know, you are all going to do amazing things. You really are. And don't forget that. You are really appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. See you later, okay?
All right. Dr. Jenkins, thank you again. And
No,
thank
you,
to
Charlotte.
all of you who joined us. And don't forget, any questions, this is the guy right here.
Right.
All right.
That's it.
All right.
Thank
Happy
you.
school.
Thank you so much, okay? Thank you.